So shifting gears slightly and moving on to internships. So we actually had a tweet into our Twitter channel at Grad Job Podcast from Andy G asking, I'm looking for an internship with a tech startup. What can I do to stand out? What advice would you have for Andy?
Yeah, that's a good question from Andy. I would say you've got to look at the company individually and tailor your application very much to their particular industry and the type of business that they are. So, as I mentioned, for us, you demonstrating some sort of interest in cybersecurity or some knowledge, and making it clear that this wasn't just a generic application that you've sent everywhere else would be the sort of number one thing. I think in terms of practical steps, there's a ton of there's tons of startups in London at the moment. It's an exploding scene. If you look online, there's I know there's 2 or 3 different startup jobs websites. If you just Google startup jobs London, there's 2 or 3 that we've advertised internships on before. So certainly in terms of finding what's out there to apply for, there's some pretty obvious stuff like that. And a lot of startups will list jobs on their site that will often include internships. And then, having done that, just be aware that each of those jobs, when we advertise for an internship, we get about 100 applicants we've got to sift through.
So, per internship?
Yeah, per place. So that's probably not as many as some other companies get for some other jobs, because we're still relatively small and unknown. But even with 100, there's some pretty fierce competition there. So you've got to make sure that, if you just chuck in a CV with no personalization at all, and there's 20 people in there that have made a real effort, you're probably not going to make it even through the first hurdle.
Mm. So you mentioned you were offering internships. How do you tend to use them? How long do they last? Are they paid? What sort of work can people expect? Yeah,
it's a bit of a range, actually. So back in the early days of the company, the first 6 months we didn't pay ourselves anything. There was only 3 of us in the firm, and beyond that we were at minimum wage for a while, just to keep the thing afloat. And so we came across a scheme that we used in our sort of second year. There was an American sort of free internship placements scheme called Arcadia, I think it was. And we had a couple of very bright, very good people through that program who had a sort of allowance through the Arcadia program itself, but we weren't required to pay them because they were effectively just getting work experience with us as part of their trip to the UK. So, and at that stage in our company, we couldn't have afforded to pay for anyone. So it was really great, and they were good people, and we're still in touch. But now we're funded, we're a bit further along, so we absolutely pay for every internship place. We actually pay the sort of London living wage generally, rather than just sort of minimum wage as well. In terms of the roles, it's sort of varied by the stage we're at. So right now we've got a couple of internships advertised, but it's specifically for people who are interested in basically being a cyber intelligence analyst. So we're looking very specifically at courses that involve cybersecurity in some way or intelligence. And so that's sort of not for everyone, and we're only targeting those specific courses. But, aside from that, at other times we've advertised for, sales, for marketing, for sort of general operations and admin. So, and you look at other startups out there, there's, almost any type of role you'd imagine will be represented somewhere in London or elsewhere, I'm sure.
Mm. And is your internship recruitment process different to that than it would be for a graduate role?
It's actually pretty similar. So something I didn't mention, when there's a specific job role, for example, something like cyber intelligence analyst, we try to put some sort of task in the interview process. So usually the first or second face-to-face interview, often the second one, we'll set them some sort of homework in the meantime, effectively, where we'll try to come up with a small sort of mini bit of project work that's as close to what we do in the company as possible, so we can actually see what their sort of quality of work is like. So yeah, for this particular internship, we'll have a task as part of the process that wouldn't be necessarily in other jobs. We tried to sort of shortcut it once and just have a sort of one face-to-face and a quick phone interview for one of the internship positions, and that was the one that went pretty badly wrong. So with that in mind, we, even for internships, we're going to take the recruitment pretty seriously.
And do you have a high percentage of interns that you keep on, or that would come back to you after finishing their studies?
Yeah, surprisingly high. I mean, we tend to not, certainly where we are now, we don't take on an intern unless there's going to be potential for a full-time role. So it isn't just come in and do something, go and make the coffee and book the meeting,
do the filing,
yeah, whatever. It's anyone we're taking on. It's with expectation that there is a full-time role, but obviously they've got to show that they're good enough for that. So of the interns we've had in recently, we've actually, I think the last something like 4 of the last 5 have ended up joining full-time.
It's a good hit rate,
which is very good, and I doubt we'll keep it quite that high because we got very lucky with a few pretty exceptional people, and it's hard to get great people, of course.
Just shows the power though of getting an internship, and if you do well, and then you 4/5 guaranteed a job at the end of it, or get a job at the end of it. It shows that it's worth putting the effort in at the beginning.
Yeah, that's right, and I think it allows allows the company to have a look at you, but it allows you to have a look at the company as well and work out, do you actually want to work there or not? Do you like the people? Do you like the culture and environment? So
definitely,
that's both ways.
which is just as important.
Yeah, and it looks great on your CV as well. If I was looking at someone who'd done a couple of internships in some sort of similar business versus someone with no experience, then you'd go with the person with the internships.